"5:01 local time. The Strait of Hormuz is still dark. Tankers sit motionless outside the shipping lane. Insurance companies are already losing their minds. Oil prices are climbing by the hour. And somewhere inside the Iranian coastal network, an IRGC colonel is smiling at a radar screen because tonight finally looks like revenge. 30 Iranian speedboats are pointed at one lone American destroyer, and the colonel believes he's about to make history. He lifts binoculars toward the gray silhouette moving through Hormuz and waits for the American ship to react. Turn away. Slow down. Broadcast warnings. Something. Nothing happens. The destroyer keeps cruising straight through the blockade like it accidentally wandered into the wrong neighborhood and doesn't care enough to notice. That confidence irritates him, because Tehran has spent the last 72 hours threatening to shut down the Strait of Hormuz completely. Missile crews move to the coastline. Drones launched non-stop patrols over tanker traffic. IRGC commanders went on television promising no foreign ship would cross without permission. Then the United States answered with exactly one warship, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer carrying enough missiles to flatten most regional navies before breakfast. The colonel stares at the radar return and laughs under his breath. One ship. That's it. He has 30 fast attack boats spread across the water around him. Fiberglass hulls, heavy machine guns, rockets duct-taped onto launch rails by men operating almost entirely on confidence and caffeine. And tonight, they are absolutely convinced they can sink an American destroyer. In his head, this is payback for Operation Praying Mantis, when the U.S. Navy turned half the Iranian fleet into floating scrap metal in less than a day. Tonight, he thinks the ledger gets balanced. Iranian swarm doctrine sounds brilliant during PowerPoint presentations. You attack from every angle at once, force a destroyer to divide its targeting, overwhelm the sensors, slip inside the defensive perimeter before the Americans can react. Simple. At least simple if the Americans cooperate. The colonel keys his radio. 3-prong attack. Full throttle. Weapons free. 12 boats break left. 12 swing right. 6 charge directly through the center with the colonel personally leading them because state television already has a camera crew waiting back at port for victory footage. Salt spray explodes across the formation. Engines scream across the water. The destroyer still doesn't react. No warning shots. No evasive turn. No panic. The colonel grins. The Americans must be frozen. Here's the problem. The Americans are not frozen. They are just operating on a completely different level of violence. 10 miles ahead of the destroyer, 2 Sikorsky SH-60 Seahawk helicopters have already been circling low over the water for nearly 20 minutes. Engines warm. Hellfire missiles armed. Pilots calm enough to sound board over the radio. The Iranian briefing apparently forgot to mention them. At 5:12 local, the lead Seahawk receives clearance. 4 seconds later, 8 Hellfires leave the rails. The left attack column never sees them coming. The missiles skim low across the waves before slamming into the lead boats almost simultaneously. The night flashes white. One boat disappears instantly. Another flips backward in a fireball. A third simply explodes into burning fragments and fuel. The boats behind them suddenly lose visibility because the boats in front of them no longer exist. Within 20 seconds, the entire left flank stops functioning as a naval force and starts functioning as floating debris. The colonel grabs a radio. Status. Report. Report now. What answers him is pure chaos. Junior officers yelling over each other. Screaming. Someone demanding air support that does not exist. Another voice repeatedly shouting helicopters loud enough to peak the radio frequency. The destroyer still hasn't changed course. Same speed, same heading, same terrifying level of confidence. That's when the colonel feels the first real pulse of panic. Because maybe the Americans were never trapped here. Maybe the Iranians were. He still has over a dozen boats operational. Plenty to push through. Plenty to board the destroyer if they close distance fast enough. So he screams another order. Advance! Advance now. The surviving boat slam throttles forward. Machine guns begin firing wildly into darkness. Tracer rounds bounce uselessly across black water. Then explosions erupt from the opposite direction. A second Sea Hawk suddenly appears barely above the waves off the starboard side. 6 more Hellfires streak toward the swarm. 6 more boats vanish. One detonates so violently the blast wave flips another vessel beside it completely upside down. The formation collapses instantly. Now the colonel realizes something horrifying. He is no longer leading an attack. He is leading whatever survived the first 2 minutes. And unfortunately for him, his own command boat is now the closest target to the American destroyer. Inside the destroyer's combat center, the Aegis combat system categorizes the remaining boats under an extremely short checklist. Fast, armed, closing distance. That checklist only ends one way. On the destroyer's deck, the Phalanx CIWS rotates toward the incoming contacts. The Phalanx was designed to destroy anti-ship missiles flying faster than sound. Using it against fiberglass speedboats is like using a wood chipper to open a soda can. It fires for 1 second. That is all it takes. Thousands of tungsten rounds shred across the water. The colonel's command boat instantly stops, resembling a boat in any recognizable way. The hull explodes outward. The engine tears loose. Metal fragments slice through the air like shrapnel from an artillery shell. 1 second, he is standing behind the radio console. The next, he is underwater wondering why the ocean suddenly feels like concrete. His life vest inflates automatically and jerks him back to the surface. Burning wreckage drifts around him. Fuel burns across the waves. Somewhere nearby, another damaged boat is already sinking stern first into the strait. And the American destroyer? Still moving. Same heading. Same speed. Like absolutely none of this mattered. On the bridge, the engagement gets logged in one word. Auto. The surviving Iranian boats scatter in every direction. 2 crews kill their engines completely and pretend to be disabled, hoping the Americans somehow forget they exist. Minutes later, a Navy rescue boat pulls alongside the colonel. 2 sailors haul him aboard. A Marine hands him a towel with the destroyer's name stitched across it and passes him a bottle of water while checking paperwork on a clipboard. The colonel coughs seawater and stares back at the gray destroyer disappearing into the darkness of Hormuz. 30 boats launched, almost none returning, and the Americans barely interrupted course to deal with them. The next morning, tanker traffic resumes through the strait. Oil markets calm slightly. Tehran publicly denies any major naval loss occurred overnight. Satellite imagery tells a very different story. If this breakdown hit hard, subscribe now so you don't miss the next naval confrontation story.